All right. So shout out to Shir Shah, who kindly wrote me a comment, and it made me think about some things. I think I've said this before, but I'm going to make a very specific video against it, and hopefully it's a little better worded and a little better rhetoric than in the video, A Kind of Gentler Yellow Peril. I kind of went off I kind of went off on a tangent, but I'm going to be very, very specific about this. So here's his comment. You think the U.S. will push aside its divisive tactics, CRT, intersectionalism, etc., to unite the population to rally against China? And I said, it's a good question, but my gut says no. The U.S. created this problem itself. And I'm going to make this, here we are making a separate video. The fact is that corporations created the current Chinese rise. The fact of the matter is that China really just had to let these things fall into their lap a lot of the ways. They didn't have to do, people will say, I think corporations will still say, Chinese stole technology, this and that. No, corporations willingly gave them this. When China opened up, even before Mao Zedong died in 1976, Nixon came in and started to, kind of pry that door open a little bit. But by the time Deng Xiaoping comes into power in the late 70s, a lot of these corporations were there. A lot of them were, were kind of backwards and everything else. I don't even say that as being racist. I'm just saying is that if you looked at it, they were producing like tin cans and stuff like that. But the thing is, though, this is similar to what the U.S. did, right? You had plenty of companies that started out making like toasters or something like that. Now they're multi-million-dollar companies, right? So, like I said, it's no different than what innovation has done with these businesses, right? They adapt and they try to fit the times and they produce what needs to be produced. I'm not even saying that as a capitalist. I'm just saying that more as just somebody who's just being realistic. But, I think I've talked about this, but I'll say it again on this. Hyundai. Let me see here. Breakup of Hyundai. Let me go ahead and see. Let me get a specific time frame here. I want to say it was the 80s, but yeah. Breakup of Hyundai. There we go. So breakup of Hyundai. Founder to break up Hyundai. There we go. So this is 1993. Okay. So 1993, the founder is to break up Hyundai. Let me see here. So let me read this story from Washington Post. Chung Ju-jung. I'm not trying to be, I'm just a dumb American. The billionaire founder of South Korea's huge Hyundai group, or Hyundai. I'm just going to say Hyundai because it's easier. Okay. Chung, who began with a one-stall truck repair business after World War II and built it into a $550 billion global enterprise, said he wants to turn his creation into a looser network of affiliated but separate companies. So, yeah, so I'm not going to read this whole thing, but so 1993. 1993, this occurs. And after this, you had the breakup of Hyundai. And, Hyundai had its fingers in many pies. This included phones. They had proprietary information that when the Chinese saw this opportunity, they came out and said, hey, can we, or whichever the case may be, hey, here's some old proprietary knowledge about these old phone screens. Guess what? You can have it. I cannot think of the name of the company. Let me see here. Let me check here. I know I said it before, but I'll say it again. Let me see here. Asianometry. I think it's ASML, though. Let me double check. It's a fairly recent video that he did. But I do think, let me make sure here. Yeah, ASML. I'm pretty sure it's ASML. So, ASML, I think he was saying this video from this guy, Asianometry. lives in Taiwan. Um, ASML was able to buy this stuff. Let me see. No, I don't think it's ASML. Sorry, it was another one. BOE Technology. Sorry, yeah, BOE Technology is going to be Apple's next OLED supplier, making the phone screens basically. So it was BOE Technology was a company that was I forget what it was, but basically Hyundai sold proprietary information or proprietary knowledge to BOE, and BOE was able to adapt that. And they were able to produce these great things, The thing is, you can still cope about it and say, oh, well, look at, I feel bad because China's going to take over everything. They're Nazis and whatnot because they treat the, what's going on with the Xinjiang people and whatnot. I thought that, you were somebody who didn't like Muslims before. Oh, that's different. That's different, though. Look at what it's the whole thing. It's so transparent. The folks that are really deeply anti-China. I have my complaints about China, I guess, because I am an American, but we did it to ourselves, and corporations did it because they wanted to produce things for cheaper. So they sent things to Taiwan. Even probably in the 1960s, they did that. You get all those children's toys and whatnot. It says made in Taiwan. But they sent things to Taiwan. They sent things to mainland China. And it was cheaper. And, like I say, with shipping costs being pretty much nil, they were like, well, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. The thing is that now China is becoming a middle-class power. And, of course, a lot of that stuff is now going to India. So it's even cheaper because now, but this is just the way things go. This is how it goes with capitalism, right? Is that it has its limits, I would say. You reach this point, and I'm sure Marx has made this point as well, but I'm going to say it here, is that you reach that point where, you have this labor reserve, if you will, this reserve army of labor, as Marx says. And you get all these folks that are, to do different industries, right? So if it's like, if you lived in Ohio, back in the Carnegie days, you were making steel, right? And you better not riot or else the bankers are going to come out and crack your head, and be busting heads. But, you reach that point of middle class and you get these union jobs and everything. I know people are going to, I already hear the Jay Zacchaeus out there like, oh, the unions were racist towards black folks and everything. Oh, I know. But the thing is, though, my unions, right? The difference, though, is that China, while it is improving, it's still not comparable to other nations. I know people are going to say, oh, why are you being racist? I'm just saying, I'm trying to be careful. I'm trying, but okay. But the thing is, though, it's not as cheap as it once was. So they're going over to India. They're going to Bangladesh. They're going to other countries like that to produce what they need to produce. We've seen this obviously with air conditioners as well, particularly. I saw a video from CNBC recently showing that, Daikin and Carrier are going to India. Now, of course, I think it was CNBC producing a video about, well, what about heat pumps, this and that? I'm like, shit, I've worked in AC or HVAC for a fair amount of time. Heat pumps are not some great thing. But anyway, I'm sticking to the point. The thing is that I know that this is a point that people have brought up before, and I know a lot of the smarter white nationalists have brought this up. The smarter ones have brought this up, that have said, yeah, corporations and businesses, that's why I hesitated to say U.S. business, because, as I said, my main point wasn't just U.S. businesses. There's also Koreans as well that did the South Koreans. But they willingly gave this information to China. They didn't have to just simply, get this stuff by spying, this and that. No, they already had the technology. Why do they need to? And like I say, people want to be mad about this, but the thing is, though, is that people would rather promote fear mongering and hatred towards China, and maybe this is somewhat on the hawk side of things or whatever, but they don't want to build up the infrastructure here. They don't want to build bullet trains here. They talk about, they'd rather, talk about critical race theory. They'd rather talk about the social ills and not talk about try to help everybody. Now I know that sounds somewhat like it's a very Ameritard point of view, but it's like, look, I think that anyone that realistically may even respect the United States would want the same thing. To say, yeah, let's build some new bridges and actually take our time building these bridges, not half-ass it like we do a lot of things today, I say that because you see that in building construction all the time. They don't want to take the time to build it. You want to be able to teach people the right way and not simply just do everything slapdash, And I say that being a sloppy millennial, but, it's not happening. Joe Biden ultimately does not want to do that. He'll give lip service to electric cars, but we don't have the economy for it. People are talking about inflation, and I have promoted fear mongering towards inflation, but what are we going to do? What is the United States as a whole going to do to build this up? And they don't want to answer that question. They don't want to delve into these issues. They just don't. They really don't. They genuinely don't want to do that. So we have to blame ourselves. Americans, we have to blame ourselves for what happened. Do not blame, we cannot blame China for that. The United States, the British, everybody else took, Germans, French, Russians. I mean, you go right down the list of all the different enclaves that exist in places like Shanghai. But we took advantage of China for a long time. During the Qing dynasty, we made, the British made Hong Kong into an enclave, right? A whole separate enclave where, businesses were thriving and they could make financial decisions and everything else, right? A huge growing, film business, from the Shaw Brothers and the, and Golden Harvest. And even, you could say the same thing with Taiwan as well, with all the independent kung fu movies and people like Robert Tai. Robert Tai, of course, worked at Shaw Brothers, but famous for the Venoms movies. He choreographed a lot of the early Venoms movies and went back to Taiwan. But anywho, I'm getting off topic. The thing is, though, is that we created this issue ourselves, and there's a point I come to where it's just like, I just blame myself. I'm just like, well, I'll just blame myself and I'll keep going. That's what I say to myself. I could blame other people and this and that for my problems. It's like, look, at the end of the day, you have to be willing to blame yourself and say, look, we fucked up. And that's the only thing, in my opinion, that will save the United States, to admit that we screwed up. And I know that that's what CRT is supposed to do, right? That we admit that we screwed up and that we have racist tendencies and we just do these few things. I know, that's what people will say, that, of course, the social ills and the socioeconomic problems. I know. I'm not trying to downplay them. But we have to admit, on a bigger level, though, with China, is that we willingly did that. Is that corporations willingly sold that information. And I'm sure that you can give American examples. I just can't think of them offhand. But much the same way with Apple, right? Doing business with China, or Nike doing business with China. That's why it's a fake trade war that goes on between America and the United States. It's fake. It doesn't exist. You can go ahead and say, oh, well, Trump is doing, no, he isn't. It's not a real trade war. We're losing. If it was a war, we'd be losing. We're not producing semiconductors because that's too expensive. And we have literal droughts going on in the western half of this country. You know, Arizona doesn't have enough water. California doesn't. All this water that you get from the Hoover Dam is not there. Droughts are occurring. It's ironic, of course, that Texas, of course, had their drought, and California continues to go in and out of drought. I don't know. I say that maybe it's a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of chauvinism being in Texas as long as I have, but it's like Texas is somewhat better off right now. Somewhat. Let me not curse it, but we see a country that I'm going to say this as many videos I've made about balkanization and all this sort of thing for whatever reason, mostly for me LARPing, but I wish this country would unite around something. But we can't. Now, you could blame BLM, you could blame whatever group you want to, but I don't know. I think that any sort of unity, but I also know though that unity is temporary. So I don't know. I'm once again, this is the time of being conflicted for me. I feel conflicted. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance in my head about what do I really believe. Oh, and it's hard because like I can't just be the edgy LARPer. It's like, oh, it's hard. Anyway, corporations created the rise of China, and China is now, the CPC more specifically is now getting rid of that American influence. The influence from Alibaba. Jack Ma did business with, these, like Yahoo, this and that, to make Alibaba successful. Tencent. But there are other, it's like I say, I mean, you do have Baidu and everything else, which I guess you could say is maybe influenced and Weibo as well, influenced by Facebook and Twitter to a point. But, the thing is that China is just a reflection of us to a point. So to criticize China is to criticize yourselves. And I just want people to think that. Say what you will about the rest of my ranting, but that just comes from my own insecurity, my own judging of what do I really believe. This is a lot of what this channel is, really, struggling between what do I really think? It's hard to say. Anywho, so food for thought. A little more information than maybe I should have. But anywho, I hope y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.